Hello booktubers. I'm outside today. It's a lovely day here actually. It's a bit too hot. The English don't like it too hot. We're not used to it. But anyway, it's lovely actually. And I'm doing a little video, only very short, but Guardian has done a list of the 100 best novels, and so every booktuber worth their salt will probably feel obliged to respond to that and give their thoughts on it. And so I'll do that, but I'll keep it brief. I'm not an academic or a teacher or anything like that. The books I've read, I just read for pleasure. Sometimes I suppose I do read to try and out of curiosity or even to better myself. That didn't work obviously, but sometimes these things happen. Anyway, 100 best novels. Of course it's bound to be controversial. Nobody can agree on a thing like that. Of the ones listed, I looked down the list. First 10, I've read them all except one. I haven't read Beloved by Toni Morrison. And the next 10, I've read them all but one, so I've read 18 of the first 20. I thought, oh, I'm doing well here. And then the next 30, I think there's 2 in the next that I haven't read. But anyway, as it goes down towards 100, there's more that I haven't read. I think I've read 70 of the whole list, and some I can't even remember reading, so they didn't make that much of an impression, obviously. And it's the best novels, so somebody's making a literary judgment. It's not the best loved, is it? There's a list. The BBC did a list in somebody put that up about the BBC did 100 best loved novels, I think in 2003, and there it was more the novels that are actually read. You know, I have read Ulysses, but would I read it again? Probably not. I've even read Don Quixote. Would I read it again? Definitely not. But is it an important novel? That is it? It is. You can't deny it really, because it's been so influential on even other artists, and also in all sorts of ways. It's an important novel. So I think the word important perhaps comes to something. You know, when it's a translation, I suppose, with things like Don Quixote, the literary merit is, if you're not a Spanish speaker or a speaker of whatever language it might be, then it's more difficult to judge, because you can't always appreciate the literary qualities. And if it's a language like Japanese or something, then you haven't got a chance, I suppose, really. Well, you're depending a lot on the translator, how good they are. But anyway, it's a good list. You know, everybody's going to have objections. There's nothing there, I think, you know, it's outrageous and shouldn't be in there. And obviously there's going to be things missing that can be a surprise, I suppose. I'm surprised there's no Zola at Germinal. You know, they don't have that in there, for instance. That's a great novel. It's really powerful. No Robert Louis Stevenson, Treasure Island. Maybe they think it's a children's book or something. But I think it's an important book. And Daniel Defoe, I don't think that's on there. I mean, if I make a mistake, then you criticise me. I didn't see it, Robinson Crusoe. But I mean, that's an archetypally important novel. There's no denying it. And it made a huge impression. And no Anthony Trollope. And Trollope never was fashionable to the literati. They always thought he was a bit of just a labourer on the fields of literature. He wrote so much. Maybe he wrote too much. But I love his novels. I think they're great. I've not read all of them by any manner of means, but the ones I have read, I think they're brilliant. And obviously there are, when you're looking at best novels, and you're looking at people like Jane Austen or Charles Dickens, you could almost include everything they wrote, I suppose. It's hard to separate one from another. So there's going to be a lot of them in there, and almost any novel by Dickens would knock off a lot of these off this 100 because it's so much better than some that are on there. But it would be boring to have a great rake of Charles Dickens novels, I suppose. So I think it's a list of worthy novels. So you could look at this and think, well, if I want to consider myself well read, I should try and work my way through these. It takes some doing. But I just read for pleasure, really, and I have had pleasure from reading a lot of these. I must say some of them are great, especially number one is Middlemarch. I've read that 3 or 4 times because I studied it for a master's degree, and it's an easy read actually, but it's got a very strong plot momentum and strong characters, and there's nothing to dislike about it really. Plus it has a depth to it, and a profundity. So I think for me, it's nice to have both. Something that keeps you wanting to pick the book up and look at it and keep going, and not a strong narrative drive or good characters. You want to find out about the different characters. The characters are brilliant in Middlemarch. I think it's a bit like a soap opera. You want to see the next episode. You want to read the next bit, find out what's going on. So I think that's a good. You could have lots of other options for number one. Great Expectations, possibly Charles Dickens or something like that. And it's nice even to be reminded. And as I say, I think there's about 20, 30 that I haven't read, so I might try and find out about some of those. And then, as I say, some of these surprises. But I read for pleasure, for entertainment. I can see how, I know some people criticise me, but Proust and things like that, they're monumental achievements. But do you read it for pleasure? Well, some do. I know some do. Yeah, and as I said before about Don Quixote, I mean, it's to me anyway dreadfully tedious, but it's an important novel, so it should be in there because it's been so influential. So the lightweight stuff doesn't get in, does it? I think it's not regarded as worthy, it hasn't. So I don't know if it lightweight's, actually, no, lightweight's not the right word, but so J.R.R. Tolkien, some people complained that Lord of the Rings isn't in there. It's not lightweight, actually. I love Lord of the Rings. I read it as a child, or in my teens. I haven't read it since, but it was great. One of these things that grabs you, really, the imagination of it. And again, I think it is a monumental achievement when you can create a whole world like that. And other favourites that people will have, like Harry Potter. I've never read any Harry Potter, but they're very, very popular, obviously. And I think a list like this is worthy, but it's not always very exciting and not always what you will particularly want to read. If you want to claim to be well read and so on, perhaps. What do you get out of being well read, though? Yeah, that's for each person to decide. That you are more clued up about humanity in general, how life is for us people struggling in society and all the difficulties we have and everything, that would it illuminates things in that way. Anyway, in this list, no detectives. Well, there is one, isn't there? There's a detective story in it, but things like that and genre fiction is not really well represented or represented at all. Is there any sci-fi in it? Because this is regarded as not very serious. It's not Mrs. Dalloway, or is it, or To the Lighthouse? I've read both of those. They're important, but did I enjoy them? Not sure I did, really. Anyway, thank you very much. I shall leave it there. Brevity again.